me, how do you lead people back to themselves?
So at Divine Navigation, our flagship process is called the Divine Coordinates process. And that is where we identify the specific, unique, energetic qualities of your soul so that you can understand how you are meant to function in the world, how your soul wants to express, and really ultimately what your specific pathways of self-mastery are.
So I understand we're celebrating an anniversary today.
We are, serendipitously.
Yes. So tell us what this special day represents to you.
So this day, 10 years ago, was my last day as an employee. Coincidentally, it wasn't planned this way, but I was like, hey, I think that's the day.
Well, how did you know you were going to be an entrepreneur? I mean, what was the force that made you?
What's interesting is both of my parents were actually entrepreneurs, but I never framed them that way. I never saw it like that. And it turned out that the only job I was ever successful in the sense that I stayed for any period of time, every job before my last job, I was there for an average of 20 to 22 months. And then I'd mastered it and I was out of there. I was on to something else. I never noticed this. And then my last job, I actually was required to have an office at home. I ran my own schedule. There was very little oversight. And after leaving my work, someone said, yeah, there's a name for that. It's called an intrapreneur. It's like, oh. So it's someone who has a more entrepreneurial segment inside of another business. So I always had that, you're not the boss of me kind of thing going on. And if you're asking when was it that I decided to do this, right? Because for me, I don't know that I could have done just anything. But once I went on this journey post that second marriage, once I had found my deepest soul's connection, I just knew I wanted everybody to have it.
Well, your process is called Divine Navigation, as you mentioned earlier, and you give people their divine coordinates. And full disclosure, I have my divine coordinates, and they've changed my life, so I can say that with so much love. How do I frame this? Excuse me. Is it a spiritual process? Would you claim this to be a spiritual process for most people?
I absolutely would, and I would say it's a spiritual and psychological process. It's really both. It's not religious. It's, whatever your faith is, all of that is included. There's nothing that's going to be contradictory. But, that premise that we are all really spiritual beings having this human experience. And I don't separate the two. I think it's super important, and I think part of our mastery is absolutely, as I say, to be vertically connected as we move horizontally through the world.
Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Sure. So, when we're all walking down the street in our day jobs, right, we live on this plane of existence, and yet if we're not just from here, how do we stay tapped into that eternal, energetic piece of us as we go through the mundane pieces of life, some of which are more exciting than others, but it's who you're being, not what you're doing, that really is who you are, and that is your purpose.
I know things shifted for me once I found out how I was being, that's for sure. And what I love about your work, too, is not only do you work with individuals out of their own curiosity to figure out their way of being, you actually help businesses get on purpose and even help brand businesses to be on purpose. Can you talk a little bit about that?
When I work with business owners, my experience is that the business owner is the container for the business, at least up to a certain point, right, where it has to grow beyond us as an individual. But energetically, your business will only expand to the extent that your own capacity expands. And your capacity will only expand effortlessly, let's say, more effortlessly, if you are coming from inside. I call it internally sourced. Because when you're internally sourced in full alignment with your soul, in full alignment with your divine coordinates, there's just a natural permeating that occurs, right? And so this radiation goes out beyond you versus the pushing that we're so taught societally to make things happen and make a decision and go for it, right? And that's all that kind of energy. You can feel the difference, right? So come back, internally sourced, radiate. And, you know, that business owner holds the energy for what's going to happen inside of the business, and then aligning it. So they're really making the soul, they're really running the business their soul wants them to, not the one they think they have to make money. Because that's just another version of abandoning yourself, compromising, doing what makes sense versus what you're truly inspired and what's truly aligned for you.
So these coordinates, they sound like points on a map.
They indeed are.
Tell us more.
Yeah, so I think of it as your point on the map of the universe, right? So unless you're standing on your point where the universe expects to find you, it's like wearing the Harry Potter invisibility cloak, right? The Harry Potter fans? So it can't find you, right? Literally, it cannot locate you. And so all the things that are meant for you are like queuing up over here, but they're like, where is Susan? You know? So when we identify your divine coordinates and you're on your spot, the way you get on your spot is to understand what the energetic quality is that you hold in your heart, which is the west, your mind, which is the east, your action and your physicality, which is the south, your spirit, which is the north. And when you bring all those together, at the peak experience is the divine coordinate. That is the overall experience your soul intended to have, and the 4 directions are the pathways to that experience. You can't get there any other way.
I love your work because you truly teach people how to embody those coordinates. And it's, as I said, it's life-changing. So let me go to our signature question. In 3 words, what is your meaning of life?
You know, I had one set of words. No, I want to use both. I have 2 sets of 3. I'll use one. Be your purpose. Your purpose isn't a project. It's not a mission. It's definitely not your business. It's who you be in the world. You can fulfill your purpose in the very next room you walk into. It doesn't have to be grandiose. It doesn't have to be, you know, some people imagine that unless they're reaching millions of people and they're on a stage that they don't have a purpose, and that's just not true. If you were born, you have a purpose. It's who you are.